Deep in the sun-baked south lies the ever-enduring jewel of the desert, Ul'dah, and it is just outside the western gate, known as the Gate of the Sultana, where you might find the most unassuming staircase. Though decrepit and worn, these stone markers hold a deep and disturbing past, filled with royalty, treason, sisterly bonds, and torture unlike anything the world had seen. I stand on the remains of the 80 Sins of Sasamo. My name is Juliet Lafira, and this is the Eorzean Historian. With the fall of the UL Dynasty, the year 1388 of the 6th Astral Era saw the rule of Sultana Sasadi Ul'dah. History paints Sasadi in a light of prosperity, but not all under her rule were content. Her sister, the Princess Sasamo Ul'dah, had grown tired of the Sultana's rule. Despite being first in line for the throne should anything happen to Sasadi, a lifetime of waiting for the unknown wasn't an option. And so, under cover of night, Sasamo is believed to have forged alliances with the recently fallen remnants of the UL Dynasty and use her power to usurp the throne. But fate had other plans. Whether it was guilt or fear, one of Sasamo's own co-conspirators turned on her. Before the plan to overthrow her sister had a chance to begin, Sasamo was promptly arrested and imprisoned in the Maharaja pit. What came next was a trial that shook Ul'dah to the core. There wasn't a peasant or merchant who wasn't invested in the scandal that unfolded before them. By the end, Sasamo was convicted of no less than 80 counts of illicit activity, most notably high treason. For such a devastating conviction, anyone could have easily been sentenced to death. But a law written into the Gold Court dictated that no member of the royal family could be executed. With no other recourse, Sasadi tasked her advisors to devise a punishment that could serve to both humiliate her sister and strike fear into anyone who dared oppose her, and thus came into being one of the strangest, but no less malicious, tortures ever seen. Sasamo was ordered to walk the 80 steps outside the then-named Western Trade Gate, up and down 80 times a day for 80 days. Each step was to serve as a harsh reminder for her crimes, and for a high society Lalafell no taller than 3 fulms, the punishment served to be a far crueler fate than it might have been for others. However, her suffering did not end there. For weeks, crowds of onlookers would gather outside the city walls, shouting and spitting profanities and other obscenities. However, despite the incredible adversity, the dutiful princess never wavered. She never bowed her head or fought back against the waves of ridicule. From this, the most extraordinary thing began to happen. The very crowd that cried and cursed her name began to cheer. Seeing this disgraced princess serving the punishment she had been dealt without contestation, to wake up day after day and do what was required, never faltering, stoked a fire in the hearts of the citizens. Sasamo Ul'dah had demonstrated an incredible resilience that showed she was determined to see her punishment to the end, and the people were ready to support her. But despite the cheers, despite the admiration, the world around her grew blurred. The support deafened into a muffled groan, and it was that, on the 80th day, on the 67th step of the 75th ascent, Princess Sasamo Ul'dah collapsed, her hand weakly reaching for the next step. never to move again. A silence overtook the crowd that was only broken by the dry desert wind. The people looked to one another for what to do, and what happened next left those who stayed within the city walls astonished. The crowd around Sasamo lifted her lifeless corpse, and then carried her up and down these very steps for the 5 remaining circuits, so that Sasamo Ul'dah could be absolved of her crimes and pass on to Thal's realm with peace and honor. Sasadi, the Sultana, had been heartbroken by the turn of events, never once thinking her punishment would result in the loss of her only kin. In honor of her sister's passing, and the actions of the crowd for helping at the very end, Sasadi officially declared Sasamo cleared of all charges, and henceforth named the staircase the 80 Steps of Sasamo. And you might be wondering, steps? The story, as it's been recently discovered, may have ended a bit differently. In our possession is the very diary to have been allegedly written by Sasamo herself during the final days of her imprisonment. According to her, she had nothing to do with the attempted coup of the throne. It alleges that her own advisors were taking orders from Sultana Sasadi herself in an attempt to implicate Sasamo and remove her as a possible threat to the throne. This account is supported by the facts that, despite the mountain of evidence on their part, Sasamo's advisors received no punishment. Furthermore, petitions by the people to hold yearly remembrances for the fallen princess, or even to perform pilgrimages atop the steps, were denied by the Sultanate, and not 3 summers had passed before the 80 Steps of Sasamo were quietly renamed the 80 Sins of Sasamo. To this day, it is unknown what really happened with the motives of the Sultana and the princess, but one thing is certain: the records kept at the Gold Court erased any mention of the crowds helping Sasamo. They state instead that Sasamo collapsed on the final step of the final day, and nothing more. So, do you think the Sultana of that time constructed an elaborate conspiracy to be rid of any competition? Or is Sasamo truly to blame for her circumstances? Feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments below. This has been the Eorzean Historian signing off until our next great adventure. Ciao for now!